Every East Coast camper knows that any day between mid-September through early November is prime time for camping, and owners of this 4Runner know that too. This week we have been given the task to gear up this vehicle and give it the No Limit Badass East Coast Explorer certification, which is something we just made up, by the way, so. We'll cover the vehicle in multiple stages, and you'll get to see it all in this single video. Now, let's get this vehicle in the shop and let Ryan show you stage 1 of 3, wheels, tires, and suspension.
So let's go over some of the parts that we're going to use on this build. First, we're going to go over the suspension components. Later, we're going to go over the wheels and tires. So for shocks and struts, we went with Bilstein. The 5100s let you lift up to 2.5 inches or set them at 0 on this model, and the rear are good for up to 2 inches of lift. So it's going to work perfectly for us. If they want to add weight at a later date, they'll be set up for that. The springs we went with were Dobinson's 302, which is a 2.5 inch lift with no weight on the front. The rear setup is a 327, so that's good for up to 600 pounds of constant load. So we are going to be adding 600 pounds of constant load, so we want to be prepared for that. KYB top mounts, can't go wrong with those, and then SPC adjustable control arms. Now those do require lubing every oil change, every service, so keep that in mind if you are buying them. There is a little bit of maintenance involved, but we have great success with them and recommend them to dial those alignments in. With all that being said, let's get these wheels and tires off here and get to work. So quick tip for you guys. I got the coilover put in and the bottom bolt started. I'm gonna start tightening stuff up, but I'm not gonna start tightening everything up, which can be a little bit confusing, so I want to explain a little bit. So the bottom ball joint bolts, free to tighten up. You're not gonna cause any damage tightening those up in the air, but this lower strut bolt, if you tighten that in the air and don't set it on the ground and re-torque it there, you're gonna rip that bushing and you're gonna have too much preload. The bushing is gonna be preloaded to give you more lift than you were intended. So if you leave these loose, which is required, or else you're gonna preload the control arms, you're gonna bend the cam gussets. So I tighten them up here, preset my cams, and then once I get up on the alignment rack, I loosen everything back up, recheck it all, make sure everything's squared away. So another thing on these Tacomas, Tundras, 4Runners, I sent the front cam all the way out. I set the rear cam all the way in, and that's pretty much your maxed out. When you have SPC control arms, you can set your caster camber with those. So this maxes out the factory adjustments, and then you can dial them in with the SPCs. Rear springs went in no problem. We did have to loosen the lower control arm bolt because the height of the spring's not a big deal though. I just want to share how I do it. Now, if you look in there, they didn't do us any favors. They don't have a ton of room in there. You can barely get a wrench in there, but if you sneak this wrench in and this is not plastic, it's metal. If you just hold on to that, sometimes you can just get lucky and just get them on off that way. That's my method. Might not be everybody's method, but works for me 60% of the time, every time. There you go. Come on, you got it. Come on.
We got it. Nope. Oh, man.
All right, let me in there.
Jesus. That's what happens when you eat your Wheaties every day.
So let's move on to the next step of the build, and that is going to be our upper control arms. Whenever you go over 2 inches of lift, you really want to pair your lift with a set of upper control arms to get that alignment dialed in and make sure you don't have any contact between the cool and the control arm with factory setup. These are SPC, or Specialty Products Company control arms. It is a forged steel design. It has X-axis bushings in the rear. The big positive about those is they're self-contained grease, no Zerk fittings, and you can tighten those in the air. They'll still be able to articulate and not preload your suspension. So that's a great feature. So let's move on to the ball joint. This is SPC's big selling feature. You can go from 0 degrees of caster adjust to plus 4 degrees. That's all done with this adjustable plate on the inside. It is keyed to go into different positions to give you whatever type of caster adjustment you need. They also claim to have the highest articulation out of any ball joint from any upper control arm. I'll leave that up to you on your research, but it also goes in like this, and the top nut allows you to secure it and give you camber adjustment. So it's really going to work out well for our build. Let's just get them installed now. So on these upper control arms, the installation and removal process, there's 2 different methods. The first method is to bend this little pinch weld back and slide the bolt up and take off everything that it interferes with. That's the method that we do to save a little bit of money. The second method would be just to cut the bolt. You put a new bolt in. They're about $30 a piece from the Toyota dealership, readily available. It's up to you which one you choose. We're going to show you the method where we take it out through the engine bay. All right, just rolled our wheels and tires over here. The last thing we're going to do before we install those is what I call our TRD cut. So the TRD pros get this done at the port when Toyota gets them in from Japan. The SR5s, the other models do not get this done. So most times we're doing it. I'm just going to go through quickly how we do that compared to how TRD recommends that you do it. So first off, this is going to be your rub area. So when you turn in, this is where you're going to be rubbing. This is your extra meat. So I'm going to get my tape line out. Start there and just move it up. That's where I'm going to be cutting. The fender liner is also in the way. The best thing to do with that is just take out your 10 millimeters get it off the clips, and then we're going to just push that thing as far forward as it'll allow us to. Put our bolts back in. Let's trim off our extra meat.
All right, now that Ryan's got all of the suspension componentry installed on our 19 4Runner, today I'm going to be installing some accessories. First off, in the rear, we're going to be doing a Dobinson's drawer system, which is going to allow them to store their everyday use items while they're out camping. There will also be a drawer slide that allows them to install their Dometic fridge. Once the Dometic fridge is installed, we're going to be running wiring dedicated up to the front of the vehicle to install some of the electrical components. One of the main electrical components is going to be a solar panel that's going to be installed on the hood itself. It's a panel made by a company called Sun. The cool thing about these panels is it literally just adheres to the hood. If you ever decide to sell or trade the vehicle, it can be removed without pretty much a trace of it being there. Once the solar panel is installed, we're going to run that wiring into the engine compartment to a solar controller. Once that solar controller sees the charge from the sun, it's going to convert it over to a 12 volt circuit, which will power our dual battery system. The dual battery system is a system that is installed, or sold rather, by a company called Genesis Off-Road. They use Odyssey batteries, and we're going to have two of them underneath the hood here. One is going to be primarily for the starting of the vehicle. The other one will be running for the accessories. So the nice thing about the way that the Genesis Off-Road system works is it actually takes the single factory battery that is installed in the left front of the engine compartment and allows us to install two batteries. We install a bracket that takes the batteries and turns them 90 degrees, allows me to have both batteries on top in the same footprint that the factory battery was. We're going to install an isolator that allows you to essentially disconnect the batteries whenever the voltage charge reaches a certain level. For example, if I'm at around 12 volts, both batteries will be disconnected. If the vehicle is running and we're above 13.5 or 14.5 voltage, the batteries will be connected and they will be charging off of the main alternator. When the solar panel is hooked up, the solar controller takes a charge from the solar panel, which is typically anywhere between 18 and 25 volts, and knocks it down or dumbs it down to a 12 volt source, which will charge both batteries if the voltage is high enough. This particular relay makes things real simple, real easy. You don't ever have to worry about it. It's 100% automatic. And saves your batteries. I use it on my own personal vehicle. We've talked about that in a video in the past. So if you have any questions about that, let me know.
Good morning, folks. While Kevin's over here doing the electrical on this vehicle, I'm going to get started on the tent. We're using a 23-0 Walkabout 72 with the Westcott design roof rack, which is the same rack I have on my personal vehicle. It's an awesome rack, very sturdy. We're also adding a 23-0 awning as well. I'm going to get started on that to try to get this thing done as fast as possible. Okay. Let's get a few grown men and we'll put this tent up on here. Yeah, I think we got it. That's the last thing. And we can do the drawer. All right, I need some tall men. Is there any tall men around here? Let's see. Justin. All right, this is going to, so it's gonna, this is the side it opens. So we're gonna put this side this way, up. So we just gotta get it here and Justin can help us. Once we sit it on here, like up here, we can kind of slide it. And there's bolts underneath and I'm trying to get the land somewhere on these 2 crossbars. Like that's where I'm shooting for. You can see they're hanging down underneath. These, I'm trying to get these to kind of go there. If we,
there's little danglers.
yeah. So that's the plan. We're going to have to pick it up, spin it. If you want to get in the middle, you get in the middle. Me and Kevin will get the sides.
So yeah, so when in 2020, right after COVID, my son's school in France closed, definitely. So we bought our van in the fall of 2019 just for vacation, you know, and we're like, all right, let's just hit the road.
Yeah.
So we lived in the van for 7 months and then moved back to the US.
Awesome.
We couldn't bring it with us because of DOT.
Yeah.
But it's, oh goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really sad. It was like probably our second favorite spot to live in. Yeah. But yeah, this is cool.
That's awesome. Say goodbye to the channel.
Goodbye, everybody. Another build in the books. Can't wait for the next one. I'm gonna go in my car and enjoy my bagel on my ride home.